The newest software update makes changes to Autopilot. Version 9 software will change the Autopilot UI. Tesla continues to push to reduce cobalt usage. And we get a look at a bunch of Model 3s waiting to be delivered in Vancouver. This is Tesla Tidbits episode number 415 for June 14th, 2018. We start things off with Elon on Twitter, as well as some of my own first-hand experience. The newest software, 2018.21.9, makes several changes to Autopilot. I'll start with Elon and some confirmed changes. At RaptorWeb on Twitter lamented his perceived increase in nag screens with the new software. Elon responds to the criticism saying, quote, "Sigh, this is the crux of the matter. Can't make system too annoying or people won't use it, negatively affecting safety, but also can't allow people to get too complacent or safety again suffers. Latest update should have a positive effect on latter issue especially," end quote. A few days following, user at IFND323 lobs another complaint at him saying, quote, 2018.21.9 is a pain. I now need to white-knuckle death grip the wheel to keep away the nags. Don't need to keep my foot on the pedals with old-school cruise control, end quote. It seems that many don't understand what the hands-on-the-wheel detection is in the car, so I'll slip that in as a PSA here. It's not gripping the steering wheel. The detection is by the car detecting resistance against it when it steers, though not so much that it disengages. I use a technique that I call the claw, which involves my left hand resting on the wheel during operation. I've included it in the link list. Elon concurs with my statement, responding to the Twitter user saying, quote, "We'll be adjusting screen alert to clarify that we mean slight up or downward force on the wheel, not really hold the wheel," end quote. This is only one change to the nag, as the nag prompt does seem to activate much quicker. And when it does, the visual indicator is no longer the full border around the instrument cluster, it's just on the top. But this isn't all. The rest of this is my own personal experience, so your mileage may vary, and it may be completely not true. I've only had the software 3 days now, but these are the takeaways that I have. Firstly, it seems to be much easier to wrest control back from the car. I have a little technique I use to suggest to the car which way I want to go when there's a fork in the highway, although again, this may do nothing. I'll apply light pressure in the direction I wish to go, and twice now I've unintentionally disengaged. Prior to the update, you had to make a fairly concerted effort to disengage via steering control, and I'd literally never had that happen before. Next, it seems to me that the ultrasonics are much more active on the car now. Not only do I notice more activity from them on the binnacle, but, and I fully admit this could be just my perception, it seems that they play an active role in moving the car within the lane, depending on how close the car is to another object or car. Going through construction with a temporary wall, I've now noticed that the car gives me yellow halos on the binnacle, and to me at least, the car biases a bit away from the object in the lane. Another thing I've noticed is that the car seems to come to a much smoother stop when traffic is stopped in front of you. It seems to pick up a slowed or stopped car much faster than before, and frequently now actually beats me to the brake. Next up, the car seems to do a far better job on highway transitions. I have a couple highways that allow me to get to an exit lane with Autopilot still enabled, and before, using the ramps to transition to the next highway wasn't quite the smoothest experience. In a few days of use now, I've got to say, it seems to be noticeably better than before. I have one last thing that I've begun to notice, and again, this may just be something I've missed prior, but it seems to me that the car has the ability to continue on Autopilot for a considerable time now when it can't pick up any lane markings at all or following another car. And it does a good job, too. I've yet to have it signal me to take over in this kind of situation now. And while it's able to continue in this situation, it will not let you start unless it can find markings. I think this could be a sneak peek at some of the functionality that will allow us to jump into the world of autonomous driving. Let me know what you guys think of the new software, and if you think I'm totally off base here. Staying with Twitter, which incidentally is where we'll be all night, Elon confirms that in version 9 of the car software, we'll be seeing another UI change like we did when Autopilot was introduced. Kevin Wong sent Elon a mock-up of his idea of an interface saying, quote, "Hi Elon, is it possible to change the main interface by moving the car up to show cars coming from the rear to avoid possible careless blind spots? I've attached a picture for example. Hope it gets taken into consideration for the safer end. Thanks," end quote. Elon simply responded saying, quote, "Yes, interface will change with version 9 software," end quote. How exactly is anyone's guess at this point, but we'll keep an eye out for the software, which Elon has targeted to arrive in August of this year. Again on Twitter, Corey Hale, CEO of Culture Banks and contributor to Forbes, was promoting an article she wrote for Forbes talking about the Model 3 and its potential cobalt shortage as production ramps up. We already know from the latest earnings call that the amount of cobalt in the pack is very low, with the company saying they made up for this by increasing nickel content. But Elon brought total clarity to the conversation, and with a bonus. Quote, "We use less than 3% cobalt in our batteries, and will use none in next gen," end quote. Certainly impressive. Long a sore spot for those with environmental concerns, as well as human rights concerns, totally eliminating cobalt from the battery while retaining the same performance characteristics would be a huge step forward. We end this episode, again on Twitter, with a mention to me by one of my followers, Jeff Borden, that a pile of Model 3s were ready for delivery in Vancouver. He included a short video drive-by of all the waiting cars for delivery. While there was a smattering of Model S and Model X in there as well, the vast majority were Model 3. Seems like you folks in Canada are in full delivery mode now, and I couldn't be happier for you. While we're sort of on this topic, if you have a story that you think belongs on the show that may not necessarily be found in the mainstream, feel free to tweet it at me. While I can't possibly use everything I get, I'll certainly appreciate the contributions. I do the show to keep you all updated on all the Tesla news worth knowing. You can check out the links to the full stories in the show description. While you're doing that, please consider supporting the show financially through Patreon at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. Thanks as always to the super patrons out there supporting the show at the $10 plus level. They are John Waltower, Drew Schuyler, John Waller, Mark and Sarah Thomas, Ryan Scarborough, Lee Sweet, William Henry Crew III, Dorian Steve Guberman, Bruno Quindici, Joey Boots, Ralph and Cheryl Waterhouse, Adam Rammer Brown, Megawatt Photovoltaic Development, Todd Sullivan, Robert Healy, Mitch Long, Zortec LED Canada, and Morven Ogg. If you can't support with dollars, be sure to show your love with positive reviews and subscriptions on YouTube, iTunes, and other services across the internet. One final show note for the night. I'll be heading out on a road trip vacation next week, and I think I'm going to do a Twitter contest during the drive. Anyone up for some fun? There could be a prize involved if I get enough interest. I threw this little tidbit into the closing of the show just to see who all is paying attention through the whole show. Hit me up on Twitter and let me know your game. That's it for today's episode. If you have feedback for me, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits and use the hashtag AskTeslaTidbits if you'd like your question to be considered for the show. I'll see everyone back here again tomorrow. Until then, keep it charged and hit the road.